Salut les amis! Today I will show you how to make some very good croissants. There is one big secret, so it's time. The more you let the dough rest, the better the result will be. There are many recipes for croissants, and this one is using milk. Are you ready? I'm ready. C'est parti! It's very important to have some very high quality butter. If you can have all-purpose flour and cake flour, that would be amazing. Then I will use some cane sugar, some salt, some dried yeast, and finally some milk. Let's start with une Poolish. It's going to help with flavor and texture. Let's get 4 grams or less than 1 tablespoon of dry yeast, 50 grams or a quarter of a cup of water, 40 grams or a third of a cup of all-purpose flour, and we combine everything. You will have to mix until you have something very smooth. And we add a little bit of flour on top of it. And now, it looks like snow. It feels like we are on vacation somewhere in the mountains. But it's not going to last, because after about 1 hour, it's going to be much more dramatic. Wow! And now we are in beautiful Réunion Island, where there is a volcano called La Fournaise. What we have looks like lava, and that's perfect, because it's going to give strength and flavor to the dough. Alright, it's time to go back home for the next steps. We need 95 grams or less than 1 cup of cake flour. But if you don't have that, it's okay to use all-purpose flour. Then we get 25 grams or less than a quarter of a cup of regular flour. We also get 20 grams or 2 tablespoons of sugar, and 3 grams or less than 1 teaspoon of salt. For the milk, we need 60 grams or a third of a cup, 105 grams or half a cup of butter, plus 15 grams or a big tablespoon. We now have everything and we can combine all the ingredients. We start with the flours, we add salt, sugar, milk, melt the smallest portion of butter, and finally the Poolish. First, we go slowly, and then a little bit faster to knead the dough. When it's not sticking to the ball, you can stop. It must look very elastic. Make a ball and cover it. You're going to place it in your oven with some boiling water. Humidity is going to make your dough rise faster. We're going to wait for 1.5 hours or until it doubles. Now you just need to remove the gas from the dough, and we're going to shape a rectangle. The dimensions don't really matter right now. Don't hesitate to use the tools you have to shape it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but do your best. Measure it, and we're going to put the dough in the fridge for 12 hours or 30 minutes minimum. We're going to add the rest of the butter in the dough, so we will use some parchment paper to make a smaller rectangle that will be half the length of what you measured earlier. It's easier to work with it when it's at room temperature. Take your time to do this step, because we don't want to make holes in the parchment paper. When your envelope is done, just put it in the fridge for 30 minutes or 15 minutes in the freezer. And now the real challenge begins, because in France we use a special type of butter that melts at higher temperature. So if you see that yours is going to make a big mess, just put everything back in the fridge. When your butter has the same texture as your dough, you can enclose it. But don't do it before, because it will break. Turn your dough at 90 degrees and stretch it slowly by pressing down. Try to keep a rectangular shape. We're going to make un tour double, which is like doing a book fold. Try to go with this shape, but you can go with this one if you see that your butter is going to make a big mess. Stretch your dough a little bit and then put it in the freezer. If you want to see some very nice and defined layers, you really have to wait for 30 minutes. Before stretching again, make sure that this side is on your right. We are now going to fold the dough another time with what we call un croissant, which is the equivalent of a letter fold. And it goes back to the freezer for 30 minutes. Once you stretch your dough again, you're going to make a square that is 25 by 25 centimeters. But if you use inches, just go with 10 by 10, it will be easier. And now we're going to cut triangles. We want each base to be 10 centimeters or 4 inches. As you can see, when I cut the dough, I don't drag the knife. And that's important because if you drag it, you're going to damage the layers. Now we can roll the triangles. Be very, very gentle. We don't want to push too hard on the dough. And if you want, you can stretch it a little bit to have more body. Just go slowly with your fingers and remember, don't press too hard. Put your croissant on some parchment paper and we will use some boiling water again to proof them. This process is going to take about 2 hours. I'm using 1 egg yolk and 1 tablespoon of milk for the egg wash. Make sure to avoid putting it on the layers, otherwise they won't rise. You're going to bake them for about 20 minutes, and when they are golden, you can put them on a baking tray so that they can dry. And now, you're ready to enjoy. Voila! Look at these croissants! Aren't they beautiful? You're going to love their buttery taste. And you can share them or not. I know that this recipe takes time, but it's so worth it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. À bientôt!